Adaeze, sit down. You are embarrassing this family. Look at Chidera. Look at what a real daughter brings home. And you are here telling us about vegetables. And a man who cannot even pay his own rent. You are 30 years old. What do you have? What have you ever given us? Please, mother, I've tried. It's not my fault. Have mercy.
Oh, please, you can't do this. This is my home.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but the property has been officially repossessed.
The daughter they were scolding had spent the last 3 months quietly paying her parents' electricity bill, their water bill, and the hospital bill her mother thought nobody knew about. She had paid it all from a salary her family called small, without telling anyone, without asking for a thank you. Her sister had brought a car that belonged to her husband's company. She had brought nothing of her own. They had it exactly backwards. And 10 years later, when the truth finally stood in that sitting room where they had shamed her, it would arrive in a way none of them saw coming. This is the story of a daughter who was never chosen, a family that confused shine for substance, and the decade of quiet work that changed everything. Stay with this story to the end. What this woman builds while her family is busy praising someone else will leave you breathless. And the ones who told her she was not enough will end up learning in the most humbling way possible exactly how wrong they were. There is a kind of daughter every family has, and few families deserve. Adaeze was that kind. She was the second of 2 daughters, and from the time she was old enough to understand the difference, she understood that she and her sister, Chidera, occupied different places in her parents' hearts, not because of anything she had done, because of everything she was not. Chidera was loud, beautiful, and magnetic in the way that draws rooms toward a person. She laughed too big and spent too easily, and somehow always looked like she had just come from somewhere important. From childhood, she knew how to hand their mother a gift with a flourish, how to make their father laugh until he forgot he had ever been tired. She understood instinctively that love in that house was performed, and she was a gifted performer. Adaeze was quiet. She was the one who woke early to sweep before school. She was the one who sat beside her mother when the malaria was bad, pressing a cool cloth to her forehead through the night. She was the one who learned how to stretch the soup ingredients when the money was thin, who never complained, who asked for nothing because she had watched closely and understood that there was barely enough. She did not know how to make an entrance. She only knew how to stay. But staying is invisible, and in a house that valued the spectacular, the steady things went unseen. Their father, Pa Ezike, was a man who loved his family in the way of a man who had grown up poor and spent his whole life running from it. To him, money was the only language that did not lie. The daughter who brought money home was the daughter who loved them. It was simple mathematics to him, even if it was wrong mathematics. Their mother, Mama Ezike, was gentler by nature, but she was her husband's wife in the ways that mattered. She had been shaped by the same hunger. She dreamed of a daughter who could walk into church on Sunday and make other women's eyes narrow with envy. Chidera gave her that. Adaeze gave her quiet faithfulness, which did not photograph well. So the pattern settled early and deep. Chidera's school reports were praised. Adaeze's better grades were acknowledged with a nod. Chidera's friends were welcomed and fed. Adaeze's were politely tolerated. When Chidera failed her university entrance exam twice, their father paid for a private tutorial college without a word of complaint. When Adaeze passed hers on the first attempt, her mother said, "God is good," and went back to peeling yam. Adaeze noticed all of it. She was not a child who raged or broke. She was a child who filed things quietly and kept moving. She told herself she would simply build something they could not ignore. Not for their approval, she was too honest for that, but because building was the only thing she had ever known how to do. She studied economics. She was not the girl who partied through her years at university. She was the one in the library until it closed, the one who took a weekend job at a small provisions store and learned the owner's inventory system so well that by her second year, she was essentially running his accounts. She graduated with the first class. Her parents came to the ceremony. Her father took photographs with Chidera standing next to him and posted them. Adaeze graduated. Chidera was in the pictures. She found work at a small logistics firm, unglamorous and honest. She learned the business with the same attention she had given every room she had ever been in, quietly, completely. She was not trying to impress anyone. She was trying to understand. Her salary was modest. Her apartment was modest. Her life did not make a sound. And then there was Emeka. He was a transport coordinator at a firm that worked alongside hers, the kind of man who was always on time and never spoke more than he meant. He was not rich. He drove a car that was old enough to have opinions. He brought her a mango from a street vendor on their third meeting because he remembered she had mentioned she liked them. And that small memory undid her in a way no grand gesture ever could have. They dated for 2 years, slowly, honestly. He met her parents. Her father shook his hand with the grip of a man reserving judgment. Her mother smiled the smile she kept for occasions that disappointed her. Chidera, who had by then married a man named Obiora, whose family owned a chain of fuel stations, looked at Emeka's old car through the window and said nothing, which said everything. When Adaeze and Emeka announced their intention to marry, the reception in that house was what she had expected and prepared herself for. "He is a good man," her mother said carefully, "but good alone does not pay rent." "Your sister's husband built them a house," her father said. "What is this one building?" "He is building a life with me," Adaeze said. "That is enough for me." Her father made a sound that was not a word. The wedding was small. They could not afford large, and they did not pretend otherwise. Chidera came in a lace outfit worth more than the entire reception budget, sat beside their parents, and was photographed constantly. When people came to congratulate Adaeze, her mother directed them toward Chidera's table to admire the handbag. It was that kind of day. But Adaeze and Emeka went home after it, together, and they built. Not loudly, not in ways anyone in her family would have noticed. They lived within what they earned, which was below what her family wished, and above what they admitted to themselves. They saved with a discipline that the people around them found dull. When others their age were buying things to be seen with, Adaeze and Emeka were studying the gap in the market that she had been watching for years. The broken middle of logistics, farmers who produced and lost because transport failed them, buyers who paid too much because the chain was disorganized, a problem she understood in her body, not just her head, because she had spent years inside it. They started with one vehicle, not a fleet, one truck, old and recently serviced, bought from a man Emeka had spent 2 years building a relationship with, so that when they were ready, the price would be honest. They took one route. They were reliable on that route in a way that became a reputation. And a reputation, in a world of broken promises, is the most powerful currency there is. While this was happening, quietly, in a life her family had dismissed, the life they admired was beginning its slow, unseen unraveling. Chidera's husband, Obiora, was a man who looked like wealth and lived beyond even that appearance. The fuel stations were partly his family's, partly borrowed image. The house they lived in had a mortgage underneath it that Chidera did not know the full terms of. The cars were company assets. The life she moved through so confidently was a performance with creditors sitting in the wings, patient and expressionless. Chidera did not know this, or perhaps she had chosen not to look closely. She had learned, like her parents, that the performance of prosperity was often accepted in the place of the real thing, and she had been performing for a very long time. She bought her parents a new television. Adaeze had quietly paid for the hospital consultation that found and treated their father's early hypertension. Nobody mentioned the consultation. Everyone admired the television. She took her mother on a weekend trip to Abuja. Adaeze had sent money for 3 months of medications and asked her mother not to skip doses. Mama Ezeka told her friends about the Abuja trip. She did not mention the medications. At every Christmas, every family gathering, every Sunday when both daughters came home, the pattern repeated itself. Chidera swept in and was celebrated. Adaeze arrived and was tolerated. Their father's eyes followed Chidera around the room and settled on Adaeze, the way they settled on furniture, present, acknowledged, unremarkable. The one time Adaeze mentioned the bills she had been covering, her father looked at her steadily and said, "That is what children do for parents. Chidera does not make a speech about it." Chidera had never once paid a bill in that house. Adaeze drove home that evening and sat in the car outside her own gate for a long time. Emeka found her there. He did not ask her to explain. He simply sat beside her in the car until she was ready to go inside. That was the kind of husband he was. "Does it still hurt?" he asked finally. "Yes," she said. "I think it always will. But I have stopped waiting for it to stop hurting before I keep going." She kept going. The business grew, not in a straight line. There were months that nearly ended them, a contract that fell through, a vehicle that broke down at the worst possible time, a payment that did not come until after the pressure had already aged them both. But they were never dishonest. Not once, not even when dishonesty would have been easier. And the people who had trusted them remembered that when the hard times passed. By the 5th year, they had a small fleet and 2 permanent roads. By the 7th year, they had expanded into cold chain logistics, the specific problem of keeping produce fresh between farm and market, which nobody was solving well and everyone needed solved. Adaeze had understood this from her very first year watching tomatoes rot at a roadside because transport had not come. The company had a name. It had staff. It had accounts that did not make her afraid to open. She did not call her parents to announce any of this. She came home on Sundays the way she always had, brought the things she always brought, sat in the same chair, and listened. And on those Sundays, slowly, The temperature in the room was changing, though nobody named it. Yet, Chidera was coming home less. When she came, she was quieter. Her clothes were still fine, but a close eye would have noticed they were the same fine clothes, reappearing more often than they used to. Obiora stopped coming 3 months before the news broke. When it broke the way these things do. Suddenly, in the middle of an ordinary day. A family meeting called by Chidera herself, sitting in their parents' sitting room with red eyes and a voice that had lost its performance. Obiora's company had failed. The mortgaged house was being reclaimed. Their savings, what there had been of them, had gone into trying to stop a collapse that could not be stopped. Chidera had been using personal money to pay staff for 3 months without telling anyone. She was left with almost nothing. The parents who had photographed Chidera at the center of every occasion sat very still. Mama Ezeka began to cry, the loud kind of crying that is as much for herself as for the child in front of her. Pa Ezeka said nothing for a long time. Then he asked, quietly, "What about the house? The cars?" "Gone," Chidera said, "or going." It was the first time Adaeze had ever seen her sister look small. She did not feel what she had perhaps expected to feel. She had imagined, in private moments over the years, that she might feel something sharp and satisfying at this moment. She did not. She felt sad, not for the money, for the years her sister had spent building something with no foundation and calling it a life. After the meeting, after their parents had moved past the initial shock into the second stage, which was panic, her father turned to her. He did not say sorry. He was not a man built for that word. What he said was, "You have the business now. Adaeze, you have become something." He paused. "Can you help your sister?" "Not I was wrong to doubt you. Not I should have seen you. Not even well done. Can you help your sister?" Adaeze looked at her father for a long time, at the face that had looked past her for 30 years, that had measured her against a performance and found her lacking, that had only turned to her fully now that the performance had ended and she was the one still standing. "Yes," she said, "I can help her," because that was who she was. Not because she had been chosen, but because she had chosen herself a long time ago, and that choice had made her someone who did not need to withhold from the people who had withheld from her. She brought Chidera into the business, not as a favor, as a colleague who would have to learn and earn and contribute. Chidera arrived on the first morning looking like a woman waiting for charity. Adaeze did not give her charity. She gave her a role and a standard and the expectation that she would meet it. It was the most respectful thing anyone had ever done for Chidera. And Chidera understood that, even though understanding it took time. And then came the conversation Adaeze had waited for, without knowing she was waiting. Her mother came to her home on a Tuesday afternoon. Not Sunday, a Tuesday, which meant it was not routine. Mama Ezeka sat in the sitting room Adaeze had built slowly over years, looked at the evidence of a quiet life well constructed, and was quiet for a long time. "I saw the hospital receipts," her mother said finally. "The old ones. I was going through some papers and I found them. Years of them." She did not look up. "All this time?" "You never said." Adaeze waited. "We were not fair to you," Mama Ezek said, and her voice broke on the last word in a way that no performance could manufacture. I saw Chidera's shine and I thought that was the love I could show off to people. I could hold up. And your love was the quiet kind, the kind that paid bills and didn't speak. And I chose the kind I could show people. She pressed her hands together. I am a foolish old woman. I chose the wrong daughter to admire. I chose the loud thing over the real thing. And you never once stopped loving us. The room was very quiet. Adaeze reached across and took her mother's hands, not the hands of a woman delivering a verdict, the hands of a daughter who had simply kept going. You did not choose the wrong daughter, Mama, she said gently. You chose the wrong measure, and you are not the only one who has made that mistake. But I am still here. I was always going to still be here. That is not something you need to earn from me. Her mother wept in a way she had not wept in front of Adaeze, since Adaeze was a small child, and the world had pressed too hard. And Adaeze held her the way she had always held the things in her life that needed holding, quietly, completely, without needing anyone to see. Her father came the following Sunday. He came before anyone else arrived. He sat in the chair Adaeze offered him and looked at the wall and was silent for a very long time, which was how she knew it was serious. I want to tell you something, he said. I am not good at telling people things. You know that. I know, she said. I built this family on the idea that money was the measure of everything because I grew up with nothing, and nothing felt like shame. So, when I saw Chidera with the money and the husband and the car, I thought, that is the daughter who did it. That is the one who survived. He paused. I never looked to see who was actually keeping things standing. I never looked properly at you. He turned and met her eyes, and his were not empty in the way they had been for so many years. I looked at the wrong things my whole life, and you are the thing I almost looked past entirely. He did not say sorry. He was still not built for that word. But something in what he said was larger than sorry, because it cost him more than sorry would have. Adaeze nodded once. I know, Papa, she said, and I forgive you. I forgave you a long time ago. I just did not know how to say it when there was nowhere for it to land. He nodded too, and the air between them, which had been held tight for 30 years, breathed out. Chidera, over time, surprised everyone, which is what people do when someone finally believes they can. Released from the performance she had been maintaining since childhood, no longer needing to be the spectacular daughter because the role had already collapsed, she discovered that she was actually good at things, practical things. She had her father's head for reading people and her mother's gift for warmth. In the business, she became the face that clients trusted, not because she was performing, because she was finally, simply, herself. She came to Adaeze one evening after work, the two of them alone in the small office. I need to say something, Chidera said. You do not have to, Adaeze said. I do. Chidera sat down. I knew on some level what was happening. In that family, I knew they held you differently, and I let it happen because I needed to be the one they chose. She did not look away. I let myself be used as the thing they measured you against, and I never once asked if it was fair. I am sorry, Adaeze, not as a formality. I am actually sorry. Adaeze was quiet for a moment, I know, she said finally, and you are here, now. That matters. They were not the sisters who had grown up in competition in their parents' sitting room. They were two women who had arrived by very different roads and at great cost at the same place. 10 years. 10 years since that sitting room where their father had told Adaeze to look at what her sister had, what a real daughter brings home. The room looked different now, not because it had changed, but because the people in it had, and what they were able to see had changed with them. The daughter they had always praised was sitting quietly, learning how to build something real. The daughter they had overlooked had built it. And the parents who had confused sparkle for substance were learning in the patient, humbling way that life teaches the things it means you to keep, that love is not a thing you perform for an audience. It is a thing you do in the dark when no one is taking photographs, when there is no car in the driveway to point at, when all that remains is the soft evidence of someone who stayed. People will always be dazzled by the bright thing, by the entrance, the announcement, the car, the flourish, the quiet one in the corner, the one who pays the bills without making a speech, the one who keeps going without needing anyone to notice, is so easy to overlook, so easy to mistake for nothing. She is usually the one holding everything up. Guard the ones who love you in silence, the ones who show up on the difficult Tuesdays, not just the celebrated Sundays, the ones whose love does not need a room to perform in. They are rarer than every shining thing you will ever be tempted to choose instead. If this story touched something in you, please take a moment to subscribe and join our growing family of story lovers. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there is a powerful story waiting for you on your screen right now. Go ahead and watch it. I promise it will be worth every minute.